Oh, windows, windows, windows. Everybody's upgrading to energy efficient windows, and I'm so happy when they just don't take these windows to the dump. Though this is how you find them, folks. They are dirty. They've got some paint on them. Some of them are quite large, but they are beautiful wood framed windows. Hardware intact, which I love that as a little detail. So, first of all, we got to get these bad boys cleaned up. So you can see why I choose to use a power washer and wash them outside. Yes, a lot of that glazing comes off. There's a lot of gunk build up. Yeah, if you don't have a power washer, a hose will work out just fine. Why this one's still wet from being power washed, it's going to be easier to scrape that paint off. So yeah, probably people painted the rooms and thought, you know what, who cares about the window, because we're going to be replacing them. So yeah, there's that. So to give these 3 windows an old-timey look, I'm going to be using Sweet Pickens milk paint, which is going to crackle and craze. I didn't sand the windows. I didn't take any of that chippiness off. Whatever came off with the power washer that was loose came off, and that was good enough. I'm going to paint right over all that cracking and crazing and hopefully add some more with some Sweet Pickens milk paint. So if you've not used Sweet Pickens milk paint before, it is a powder that you mix with a water equal parts, and you stir it for 2 minutes, and then you set it off to the side and you let it thicken up. So we have Red Wagon, Old Olive, and Window Pane. Seems appropriate. That I picked out my color choices. I'm not even sure, this one might have been a cabinet door, but it doesn't matter. It's still an old window that went to something. But yes, a lot of that chippiness came off. I'm just painting right over the top of it. It's really going to give it a lot of a texture. And because it's nice and dry and it has all that texture, I'm putting a nice heavy coat on. I should only have to really do 1 coat on this. You can see how the coverage is amazing right now with this. Since I'm not trying to get this pristine paint job, I'm just trying to get paint on. I want that cracky, chippy look. You don't have to worry about getting everything just so perfectly covered. Oh, would you look at that beautiful texture, not sanding it, using the milk paint. Wowzers, it is gorgeous. Gorgeous. So now we're going to even take it to the next level by adding some of the Jolie's black wax to it. That's going to give it some age, make it look like it's not just a newly painted window. Going to add some dirt. So it's going to look a little scary at first. Don't be scared. It's going to get down into those crevices. So add the black wax first, and then we're going to take some of the Homestead clear wax, and that's going to be our eraser to rub it in. So it's the same thing with the white framed window. Since I didn't try to sand all that chippiness off, it just kind of soaked right into the grooves. The milk paint made it even chippier. Oh, it is gorgeous. Window pane, the perfect color for a window pane. So with this one though, I don't want to darken up the window pane color. So we're going to go in with the clear wax first. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the aging wax to get down into the crevices to give it a little bit of age, which is a dark brown wax. Would you have thought that raw wood would have looked this good? Oh my gosh, the crazings are amazing on this. It just soaked in. It still gave that chippy effect that I was looking for. Love the old olive on this. Love that color. It really does have that old-timey look. So for this one, we're just using the aging wax, just straight aging wax. That's going to give it a little bit of dirt, a little bit of age. So straight on wax, wipe on, or brush on, and then wipe off. Even though I power washed, I cleaned everything. Now that I removed the tape, I need to clean off or any of the paint that I put on off. And then I also need to clean off the previous owner's paint job. A lot of times the glazing compound is not straight. You can see it. That's not part of my design I want you to see. So I just take a razor blade and start working, trying to make a straight line, trying to clean it up as best as I can. So I have this piece of canvas that I'm going to use. It just fits, but I think once it gets wet, it is going to stretch a little bit. So I'm just going to cut off a little extra. Okay, I've got it backed on a trash bag so it doesn't go through my messy paper. I just have some water and some instant coffee. I'm just going to do a little bit of making this look old. Doesn't matter if some gets on there because I'm going to make dark spots anyway. Left it on my workbench, had the fan going, let it dry. Didn't want to rush the process. Yes, it is dry. It is supposed to look like it's worn, and that's exactly how I wanted it to look. I didn't want to rush the process. So, and then putting it in the dryer would have just blended it. I like the whole imperfection of it all. So I thought maybe I would just take my little heat press and see if I could get some of the creases out. They really flattened while it was wet and it was drying. I thought, okay, well, I'll just see if I can get them out a little bit more, but I think they were out as good as they were going to get. So to attach the canvas, all I'm going to do is just use staples, just a staple gun. Like I said, it stretched just a little bit, so it's like the perfect fit for this back of the window. Now for the front of the window, I'm going to be using this transfer, though, as you see, it doesn't fit. But it's a little too busy for me. I want something simple. I want something old-timey. So decisions are going to be made. I just want the sheep and some of the wording. It's always a hard decision to start cutting pieces and parts, but we paid for it, so we're just going to use the pieces and parts that we want. That I have it all cut out. The wording is too much. The is too much. So Old Whirly Tavern, the has to go, and we'll make that work. But the rest of it, I think, looks perfect. I love the coffee staining on that canvas. Oh my goodness. So now it's time to work on transferring the image onto this window. It's funny, I remeasured, like my top was like 4 inches and my bottom was like 3 inches. And then I had to like adjust everything. But then I'm like, I kind of like it. Sometimes when you do that first set, your first set is what you really like. Like it does not have to be completely centered, you know, the old-timey signs. So I'm just going gingerly, starting with my first letter, trying to get, because I took the off, my swoop is going to be a little weird, so I'm going to have to cut my O's off to get some of that, like, oh, I'm like, oh, okay, before I get that down, let me slice those O's off to make that curve. I might have wanted to do each letter individually, but that's also kind of hard. Remember, it's the perfectly imperfect. Old-timey signs weren't perfect either back in the day. If you actually start studying them, you know, we're so hard on ourselves all the time. It's about crafting and just enjoying what we do. So all I'm doing is trying to measure down where I should start the tavern end and hoping that I'm making the same curve. But it's funny, just taking the off, how it's going to throw this off just a wee bit. So kind of trying to fake it a little bit by cutting the letters apart here and there. So have you all watching today, have you used transfers, the IOD transfers? Once you get those babies stuck on glass, they are stuck. So you don't really want to touch it because then you're committed. You just have to leave it right where it is. So, and then it's funny because you think, why do I have to rub? But you still have to rub. So you use the rubbing tool to release the image onto your object, which for me is the glass, and it'll turn chalky, and then you know that hard plastic grid paper will be ready to be released. So I'm really impressed with my eyeball centering. Just trying to keep it as I'm trying to, like, very carefully flip that backing so I'm sticking down. Try not to shift my transfer a little bit. It should stay straight and narrow while I'm releasing the whole thing. I think, I hope. But like I said, I'm not going to stress myself out by like critiquing. Once it's stuck, it's stuck. So the nice thing about the IOD transfers is they don't make this huge straight line. Like, the sheep is made up of a lot of little dots. It's not one solid mass, which takes a little bit of rubbing to get those one little single dots down, but it's wavy so that you have that perfectly imperfect to be able to match up, just like the wee little head. I don't know why they couldn't have made the whole sheep just be one part, but see how like you have those clear lines, so then you overlap it so that it's touching the bottom, and that it just kind of blends right in. You do need to seal your transfer in, and I'm just going in with Homestead House Clear Wax. No worries on the glass. You're just sealing the transfer in. So I just go ahead and seal it in, and then I just take a Norwex cloth and wipe my glass right back off. It's just about sealing that transfer in, and I can get that glass cleaned right off. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. I love how this turned out. So did you know on Zazzle you can order decoupage paper that looks like salvage pieces? So look at this rusty, crusty, galvanized. Oh my goodness. So inspiration of why I painted this red. So I thought it would be a nice coordinating color to go with the rusty, crusty of this. So love it, love it. But one piece for the size of this glass is not enough, so I needed two pieces. And a lot of times when you order from Zazzle, they don't just let you order one. It's just how the ordering goes. I think you have to order a couple or three. I can't remember how the ordering goes, but yes, you always get multiples, which is good because I like to have multiples on hand, especially if I mess up in the middle of a project. So anyway, I'm just kind of like trying to eyeball where I want to make my cuts, like how do I want to match up. Like it's not going to be a complete match, and I don't want all the rusty crusty necessarily because I don't want it to take away from that beautiful red frame. I just want it to be an accent. It's not necessarily a perfect match, but I think I got them pretty close. You know, that's not the way that we're going to be flipping them over now. So yes, so I'm just going to be using some of the Fusion's Decoupage Transfer Gel. I like the transfer gel because it does not bleach out my decoupage paper. So I'm just making sure that I line it up. So I'm just going to be using a soft bristle brush to apply it. I want to make sure that when I'm applying it, that I get it on the edges, the window frame itself also. And then I like to mist not only my paper, but also my gel down that just helps smooth out this transition. Put my hand into a Ziploc bag to try to get any wrinkles out. I am not a perfectionist when it comes to the wrinkles. I don't try to force the wrinkles out. Whatever happens is what happens. So I work out the most of them that I possibly can, and then I'll work gluing the rest of it, adhering the rest of it down. And then I'm just going to take this roller, which you can use a brayer. This is thrifted, probably a pastry roller, but it doesn't matter. It's just something to help kind of roll everything out, making sure that my decoupage gel is all kind of evenly transferred here and there, and then it'll help get out any more of those wrinkles and any air pockets. And so that I can make sure that my edges aren't going to pull up as they dry, I'm going to go ahead and put a coat on the edges, and then I'm also going to go ahead and seal the whole back of the paper in just to make sure that everything is good and adhered. Oh my goodness, I love the galvanized with this red. And so I'm going to be using some more of the Iron Orchids IOD transfers, and I just did a project recently, and I told you all that I saved the sunflowers for another project, and here the project is. I thought, this just reminds me of a piece of galvanized you'd have by the barn with your sunflowers by it. I know it's not quite sunflower season, but I am in love. I have a love of sunflowers. So I just kind of cut some out, trying to kind of figure out placements. The only thing I wish that there was more stems. It is what it is. I didn't want to overpower this very tall window with a ton of flowers. So same thing. It's just about trying to figure out your placements and doing a lot of rubbing. And yeah, I mean, I just wanted to kind of stagger my sunflowers and make it look like they were coming up from the bottom. But of course, there wasn't enough stemmage to go around, but sometimes you just work with what you have. And not that the sunflowers aren't beautiful enough, but as I was going through my transfers, I'm like, I have a couple moss butterflies that I thought, they kind of blend in with the galvanized, but not take away from the sunflower. So I thought it kind of nice to have them just kind of flying around. Now, just like before, I need to seal these transfers in. I'm just using some of the clear wax to get them sealed in, and the wax really does. It just wipes right off the glass. I'm sure you're curious, how do I finish off the backs and hide the ugliness of the backs? All I do is I have contractor's paper, which is like a heavy brown paper sack-like material. I just cut it to size. I hot glue it on, and then I just take some sandpaper, sand it smooth, cut it to size, and then I will just add a hanging system with a wire so that it's all ready to hang, and it's good to go. These windows are usually on the heavy side, so I want something that could withstand the weight of the window. Now, my last window kind of was a tragedy. So working on getting that glazing cleaned off so you could see a nice clean front. The window cracked. Darn it all. Darn it all. But we're going to be decoupaging it. I can't go with the same transfer I was going to use. I just have to rethink, go to my stash and see what I have on hand. Oh, because I already painted it and I love the paint job. Things happen. They just do. But I do need to kind of like stop it from cracking anymore. Though I have no powers to fuse glass back together, I can put some of the Starbond thin glue on there to help seal it so it doesn't go up anymore, and then I'll just work my design, how I'm finishing the window off to cover that up. So just very gingerly run a bead. So it goes in there. Just spray it, let it dry. At least it'll get in that crack. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side with the thin. The thin, you got to be really careful because it is runny. So you know you only can go forward, you can't go back. So look at this beautiful chippy white paint paper. So I'm going to be applying it just like we did the galvanized paper. Oh my goodness, what fun paper. Just cut it to size. One piece was enough for this window. So this is a case where having a stash is good. So I actually have this redesign barn. Though I don't want to fill up the whole window. I want you to be able to see that beautiful paper in the back. So I'm just going to cut out the barn. Whether I use the wording or not, I'm on the fence on. But I just really want, I know that I want to kind of center the barn in there. can see that my cut of my paper is not completely straight, but that's okay, because I knew that I was not going to want this left square. That's not necessarily a look that I always am a fan of. So I'm just kind of testing out, like, how can I distress the edges of the transfer? So I'm just going in very gingerly, because yes, sandpaper will scratch your glass. So very gingerly, I'm just trying to rub and distress the edges of the transfer. I know that seems silly, but I don't like the squareness of it. I just want it to look as distressed as the barn and the paper do. And I do feel like it needs more. It needs wording. I wish I just had a stencil that just said barn. I just wanted barn. But everything I had, somebody make a stencil that says barn or a transfer that says barn. So anyway, so I am going to go back in and use some of the country love. I do live in a farming community, and I think somebody will snag this up. Barns are hot sellers anyway when I do make these windows up. So I'm not worried about that in the least. Country love is definitely our vibe here in my area. So thank you so much for watching today's video, and have I inspired you to go out to your stash of windows, if you have windows in your stash, or go shopping looking for windows to repurpose, make into some beautiful home decor. So let me know down in the comments which of the ones I made over today. None of them were completely perfect. They all have that perfectly imperfect that gives it that handmade, DIY, crafted touch. So thanks again for watching. As always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out this channel for the first time and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys, so you can see what we're up to. Bye.